One of the most fundamental Stoic principles is the idea of control, understanding what lies within our power and what does not. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, emphasized that we cannot control external events, but we can always control our thoughts, judgments, and actions. This single principle has the power to transform life immediately, because most human suffering comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. When we get upset about the weather, about people's opinions, about unexpected setbacks, we are in fact fighting against reality itself. The Stoic solution is to shift focus entirely inward. You have full authority over your responses, your decisions, and the meaning you attach to events. By embracing this principle, life becomes less chaotic because you stop wasting energy on things outside your reach. For example, if someone criticizes you harshly, you cannot control their words, but you can control how you perceive and respond to them. Do you retaliate with anger, or do you remain calm, learning something useful from it? By practicing this discipline, you build resilience. Your inner world becomes a fortress, unshaken by storms of life. This shift is immediate. You don't need years of practice to start applying it. The very next time frustration arises, pause and ask, is this in my control or not? That single question will transform how you handle challenges and free you from unnecessary suffering. Another powerful Stoic principle is self-discipline. The Stoics believe that a meaningful and virtuous life cannot exist without self-control. Our impulses, desires, and cravings often lead us astray, causing regret and wasted time. Discipline, however, puts us in command of ourselves. Modern life constantly tempts us with distractions, social media, unhealthy food, procrastination, and quick pleasures. Yet, a Stoic understands that freedom comes not from indulgence, but from mastery over one's impulses. True transformation begins when you no longer become a slave to your urges. Imagine two people, one who gives in to every craving and one who chooses deliberately, with control. The first drifts aimlessly, while the second builds strength, purpose, and character. Self-discipline is not about denying pleasure entirely. Rather, it is about aligning actions with long-term values instead of short-term gratification. For instance, resisting laziness to wake up early and exercise develops not just physical strength, but also inner discipline. The more often you practice discipline, the stronger your willpower becomes, like a muscle trained daily. By committing to discipline, you immediately gain respect for yourself, because deep inside you know that you are not ruled by weakness. This principle alone can transform your health, relationships, career, and inner peace. The Stoics would say, "No man is free who is not master of himself." The Stoics taught that adversity is not something to fear, but something to embrace. Life is filled with pain, obstacles, and suffering, but these are not punishments. They are opportunities for growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, whatever difficulties you face can be transformed into strength if you approach them with the right mindset. Imagine lifting weights in the gym. The resistance is exactly what makes your muscles stronger. Similarly, in life, the challenges you encounter are what build your character, resilience, and wisdom. A person who avoids hardship remains weak, while someone who embraces struggle becomes powerful. Immediate transformation occurs when you shift your view of problems. Instead of saying, "Why me?" you say, "How can this make me stronger?" Every insult, every failure, every loss is a chance to practice patience, courage, and determination. This mindset doesn't just reduce suffering, it turns suffering into a tool for advancement. By practicing this, you stop being a victim of circumstances and become the master of them. Transformation happens not when life gets easier, but when you become stronger. For the Stoics, living a good life meant living according to nature and virtue. But what does that mean? Nature, in Stoic philosophy, refers to reason, order, and purpose in the universe. As rational beings, humans are meant to live with wisdom, justice, courage, and self-control, the four cardinal virtues. Living according to virtue is not about chasing wealth, fame, or pleasure, because these are fleeting and fragile. Instead, virtue is the only good that cannot be taken away. A man who lives with integrity, fairness, and wisdom is untouchable by external misfortune. For example, money can be lost, health can decline, and relationships may end, but your character, your virtue, remains within your control. When you prioritize virtue over material gain, your life takes on deeper meaning. Immediate transformation comes when you realign your goals, not around shallow desires, but around what kind of person you are becoming. Ask yourself daily, am I acting justly? Am I living with courage? Am I exercising wisdom? Am I controlling myself? By practicing these virtues, you align yourself with the natural order of existence and live a life of lasting fulfillment. One of the most powerful Stoic tools for transformation is memento mori, the practice of remembering death. At first, this may sound dark or depressing, but the Stoics viewed it as a source of liberation. When you keep death in mind, you stop wasting time on trivialities and begin living fully in the present. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Death is the great equalizer. It comes to kings and beggars alike. Instead of fearing it, Stoics suggest using it as a motivator to live wisely and courageously. When you remember that your time is limited, arguments, grudges, and petty desires lose their power over you. You focus instead on what truly matters: love, virtue, contribution, and presence. For instance, if you knew today was your last day, would you waste it scrolling endlessly? Or would you spend it meaningfully with loved ones, creating or helping others? By remembering mortality, you become urgent about life. Procrastination disappears and clarity appears. This principle instantly transforms your mindset because it strips away illusions of endless time and forces you to prioritize. Rather than depressing, memento mori is a call to live deeply, courageously, and authentically. Right now, one of the most powerful Stoic tools for transformation is memento mori, the practice of remembering death. At first, this may sound dark or depressing, but the Stoics viewed it as a source of liberation. When you keep death in mind, you stop wasting time on trivialities and begin living fully in the present. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Death is the great equalizer. It comes to kings and beggars alike. Instead of fearing it, Stoics suggest using it as a motivator to live wisely and courageously. When you remember that your time is limited, arguments, grudges, and petty desires lose their power over you. You focus instead on what truly matters: love, virtue, contribution, and presence. For instance, if you knew today was your last day, would you waste it scrolling endlessly? Or would you spend it meaningfully with loved ones, creating or helping others? By remembering mortality, you become urgent about life. Procrastination disappears and clarity appears. This principle instantly transforms your mindset because it strips away illusions of endless time and forces you to prioritize. Rather than depressing, memento mori is a call to live deeply, courageously, and authentically. Right now, another Stoic principle that creates immediate transformation is amor fati, the love of fate. It is not enough to accept what happens. The Stoics challenge us to love it, to embrace every twist of destiny as necessary and even beautiful. Marcus Aurelius advised himself, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything thrown into it." This means that even suffering and loss can be fuel for growth if you choose to love your fate. Life rarely unfolds as we plan. People betray us, dreams collapse, accidents happen. Instead of saying, "This should not have happened," Stoicism teaches us to say, "This too is part of my story." When you practice amor fati, resentment vanishes because nothing feels wasted. Everything becomes meaningful. For example, losing a business may push you toward a new path that leads to greater wisdom and success. A breakup may teach you strength, independence, and self-respect. By loving your fate, you stop fighting reality and start flowing with it. This shift in perspective immediately transforms suffering into empowerment. You become unstoppable because nothing that happens can break you. It only builds you. In the noisy world of today, silence is almost a forgotten virtue. The Stoics valued reflection, meditation, and quiet contemplation as tools for wisdom. Seneca often advised spending time in solitude to examine one's thoughts and actions. Transformation begins when you create space for silence, because silence reveals truths that noise hides. In constant distraction, we live reactively, but in reflection, we live deliberately. Taking just a few minutes each day to sit quietly, breathe deeply, and reflect on your thoughts can realign your entire mindset. In silence, you can ask, "Am I living according to my values? Am I wasting time on what doesn't matter?" This practice creates clarity, focus, and self-awareness, qualities essential for transformation. Moreover, silence teaches you to listen more than you speak, to observe before reacting, and to cultivate patience. Many conflicts are avoided when silence is chosen over impulsive words. By integrating stillness into your life, you create inner strength and wisdom that cannot be shaken by external noise. Immediate transformation comes when you realize that silence is not emptiness. It is power. One of the most radical Stoic principles is cultivating indifference toward pleasure and pain. This does not mean rejecting joy or denying feelings. Rather, it means not becoming enslaved to them. Pleasure can trap us through addiction, while pain can weaken us through fear. The Stoics taught that neither pleasure nor pain defines a good life. Virtue does. By training yourself to remain steady in both comfort and hardship, you gain unshakable freedom. Imagine being equally calm whether people praise you or insult you, whether you win or lose, whether life gives you comfort or discomfort. This is not numbness, it is strength. When you are no longer controlled by pleasure, you make wiser choices. When you are not destroyed by pain, you remain resilient. For example, instead of chasing endless luxury, you can enjoy simple things with gratitude. Instead of fearing loss, you can face it with courage. Immediate transformation comes when you no longer live in constant reaction to pleasure and pain, but instead rise above them, guided by reason and virtue. Gratitude is a deeply Stoic principle, though often overlooked. The Stoics understood that much of human misery comes from focusing on what we lack instead of appreciating what we already have. Marcus Aurelius, even as the most powerful man in the world, often reminded himself to be grateful for life itself, for waking up, for friends, for opportunities to practice virtue. Gratitude transforms life immediately because it shifts your attention from scarcity to abundance. Even in hardship, there is always something to be grateful for: breath, nature, lessons, resilience, love. Gratitude is not about ignoring pain, it is about choosing perspective. For example, Instead of resenting a challenge, you can be grateful for the chance to grow stronger. Instead of complaining about what is missing, you can cherish what is present. This practice creates joy without dependence on circumstances. It softens the heart, strengthens relationships, and deepens contentment. By practicing gratitude daily, whether through journaling, prayer, or simple acknowledgement, you elevate your spirit. Life feels richer, even if nothing externally changes. The Stoics would say, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." One of the greatest causes of human suffering is attachment. Attachment to outcomes, possessions, and even people. The Stoics taught that freedom comes from learning to let go. Epictetus reminded us, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will, and your life will flow well." Letting go does not mean becoming cold or careless. It means recognizing that nothing external is truly ours. Wealth, health, reputation, relationships, all are temporary gifts, not permanent possessions. When you cling desperately, you live in fear of losing. But when you learn detachment, you enjoy fully without anxiety. Imagine holding sand tightly in your fist. The harder you grip, the faster it slips away. But if you hold it gently, it rests in your hand peacefully. Immediate transformation occurs when you loosen your grip on life. Instead of saying, "This must stay," you say, "If it goes, I remain whole." This principle gives you strength in loss, calm in uncertainty, and peace in impermanence. By letting go, you paradoxically gain everything, because nothing has the power to enslave you anymore. Resilience is not something you are simply born with. It is built through deliberate practice. The Stoics trained themselves daily to endure discomfort and prepare for hardship. Seneca recommended voluntary hardship, such as fasting, wearing simple clothes, or practicing minimalism, to remind oneself that comfort is not necessary for happiness. This training builds inner strength, so that when real adversity comes, you are not shocked. Transformation happens when you stop avoiding challenges and instead lean into them as training grounds. For example, choosing discipline over laziness each morning is resilience training. Facing criticism without defensiveness is resilience training. Accepting setbacks calmly instead of collapsing emotionally is resilience training. Each day offers opportunities to strengthen your inner armor. Immediate transformation begins when you stop asking for an easy life and instead develop the resilience to handle a hard one. The stronger your resilience, the less life can shake you. Like a tree that bends in the storm but does not break, you become flexible yet unyielding. Stoicism teaches, don't hope for life without storms, but prepare yourself to endure them with courage. Stoicism emphasizes the power of reason as humanity's highest faculty. Unlike animals driven purely by instinct, humans have the gift of rational thought. Yet, many people live on autopilot, reacting emotionally without reflection. The Stoics believed that transformation begins when reason governs emotions instead of being ruled by them. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to examine his thoughts and ensure they aligned with virtue. Immediate change happens when you pause before reacting emotionally and ask, is this reasonable? Is this aligned with wisdom? For instance, when anger arises, instead of shouting back, you reflect, will anger improve this situation or worsen it? Rational thinking allows you to step out of impulsive chaos and into deliberate choice. This does not mean suppressing emotions. It means guiding them with wisdom. By practicing rational reflection, you make better decisions in relationships, work, and personal growth. Reason becomes your compass, preventing you from being tossed around by every emotional wave. With this principle, you gain clarity, self-mastery, and inner peace, because your life is no longer ruled by irrational impulses, but by conscious wisdom. The Stoics warned against being trapped in the past or anxiously living in the future. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." Transformation occurs when you fully inhabit the present moment, because the present is all that truly exists. The past is gone, the future is uncertain, but this moment is real. Many people waste life worrying about what has already happened or what might happen, while missing the beauty of now. The Stoic practice is to return to the present constantly. If you are eating, eat with awareness. If you are with loved ones, be fully present. If you are working, focus entirely. This doesn't mean ignoring the future. Planning is wise. But anxiety about the future is wasted energy. Likewise, regret about the past steals joy from the present. By practicing presence, you experience deeper peace, gratitude, and clarity. Immediate transformation comes the moment you stop running in mental time and instead anchor yourself in the now. Every breath, every action, every moment becomes sacred. This principle makes life richer without requiring anything external, because you finally notice what is already here. The Stoics believed in the idea of cosmopolitanism, the unity of all human beings as part of a larger whole. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that he was a citizen of the world, not just of Rome. Transformation occurs when you expand your perspective beyond selfishness and see yourself as part of humanity. This principle immediately changes how you treat others. Instead of seeing enemies, you see fellow humans struggling in their own way. Instead of resenting others, you practice compassion and fairness. The Stoics taught that anger toward others is misguided because everyone acts from their level of understanding. When someone wrongs you, they are not evil. They are ignorant, misguided, or in pain. By viewing humanity as one family, you reduce hatred and increase empathy. This shift transforms relationships, work, and society at large. Imagine a world where each person treated others with fairness, justice, and compassion. This is the Stoic vision. Immediate transformation begins when you stop asking, "What's in it for me?" and start asking, "How can I contribute to the whole?" This principle gives life meaning because your actions are no longer small and selfish. They are part of a larger human story. Anger is one of the most destructive emotions, both for the person who feels it and for those around them. The Stoics taught that anger clouds reason, leads to poor decisions, and weakens character. Seneca wrote an entire essay called On Anger, where he described it as temporary madness. Transformation begins when you no longer allow anger to control you. The Stoic method is to pause, breathe, and analyze before reacting. When someone insults you, they are not truly harming you. They are only revealing their own ignorance. By remaining calm, you preserve your dignity and strength. Immediate transformation occurs when you replace anger with reason. For example, instead of shouting back in a heated argument, you calmly disengage or respond with wisdom. This not only diffuses conflict, but also gives you self-respect. Anger often feels powerful in the moment, but in reality, it weakens you because it hands control to others. Mastery over anger is not suppression. It is understanding that anger is unnecessary. Once you grasp this, life becomes calmer, relationships become healthier, and your mind becomes clearer. The Stoics valued simplicity, believing that happiness comes not from having more, but from needing less. Modern society constantly pushes consumerism, the idea that the next purchase, the next upgrade, the next luxury will bring joy. But the Stoics discovered that true freedom lies in detachment from excess. By practicing minimalism, you immediately transform your relationship with material things. For instance, you don't need to own hundreds of clothes to be content. Simplicity brings clarity and peace. When you stop chasing endless possessions, you free your time, energy, and money for what truly matters: virtue, relationships, wisdom, and contribution. Seneca often reminded himself to practice living with little, so that he would never fear poverty. Immediate transformation happens when you realize that wealth is not in possessions but in contentment. The less you depend on externals, the freer you are. A simple meal, a modest home, and a calm mind often bring more joy than endless luxury. By adopting simplicity, you escape the trap of constant dissatisfaction and enter a life of gratitude and peace. Courage is one of the 4 cardinal virtues of Stoicism, and without it, no transformation is possible. Life constantly presents fears: fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of loss, and fear of the unknown. The Stoics believe that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to face difficulties with bravery, not retreat. Transformation happens when you stop running from fear and instead walk into it with courage. For example, speaking your truth when it is unpopular, standing up for justice, or making a bold life change all require courage. Each act of courage strengthens your character and expands your freedom. Immediate transformation comes when you realize that fear loses its power the moment you act against it. Life shrinks or expands in proportion to your courage. By cultivating courage, you gain the strength to live authentically, pursue your values, and face whatever fate brings with unshakable confidence. The Stoics practiced daily reflection as a tool for self-improvement. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations is essentially a journal, private notes to himself about how to live better. Seneca advised reviewing the day each evening, asking what was done well, what could be improved, and what lessons were learned. Immediate transformation occurs when you adopt this habit of reflection. By writing down your thoughts, you gain clarity about your actions, emotions, and progress. Reflection prevents you from living unconsciously because it forces you to confront yourself honestly. For example, if you lost your temper, you can write about why it happened and how to handle it better next time. If you acted courageously, you can note it and reinforce the behavior. Journaling also helps you track growth over time, turning philosophy into practice. Just a few minutes of reflection each day creates accountability and progress. Transformation begins the moment you stop drifting aimlessly and start consciously guiding your life. With reflection, each day becomes a lesson, and over time, your character strengthens like a sculpture being refined. The final Stoic principle for life transformation is the pursuit of wisdom. For the Stoics, wisdom was the highest good because it guides all other virtues. Without wisdom, courage becomes recklessness, discipline becomes rigidity, and justice becomes blindness. Wisdom is the art of knowing how to live, what to value, what to avoid, and how to act rightly. Immediate transformation happens when you make wisdom your ultimate goal instead of wealth, fame, or pleasure. Reading philosophy, reflecting on life, seeking mentors, and learning from experience all develop wisdom. Marcus Aurelius spent his nights journaling about wisdom. Despite being emperor, Seneca wrote letters full of wisdom while facing political turmoil. Epictetus taught wisdom from a life of slavery to freedom. Wisdom allows you to see through illusions, remain steady in chaos, and live a life aligned with truth. By pursuing wisdom, you transform not just your own life, but also inspire those around you. The Stoics believed that a wise life is the only truly happy life because wisdom ensures that every action is meaningful, virtuous, and in harmony with nature.